at 6:02 p.m. and the first the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next agenda item is correspondence, visitors, and public comments. Do we have anybody online? Seeing none. Agenda review, I know there's nothing for changes to the agenda review. I did speak with Julie earlier today. Next agenda item is the approval of minutes from November 4th of 2024. Somebody would like to make a motion to accept these?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 4th.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Peter. Thank you. Elaine, any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
You know, I probably should abstain. I don't think legally I have to, but I will abstain.
That was my next one. Is
Not being here.
You're abstaining, I'm abstaining, Megan. Motion carries 6-0-3. Then we have administrative reports, and we'll do Franklin. Anybody has anything they'd like to point out from the Franklin one?
Yeah. Joyce, I just want to say I love what you did for Veterans Day, getting those kids involved and doing more than just learning what the day was about, but actually participating and doing those cards. I'm sure that means a lot to the veterans.
Thank you. If you guys had asked for a highlight, that's what one of the things I was going to say, because in my challenge, I talked about how it's kind of hard to schedule things right now. And I so appreciate that people understand how important it is to still have those kind of activities, that Veterans Day assembly with Valerie Bertrand and the cards and just how much it means to people. We got an email back from the president of the local that said, says, your school's efforts really have meaning and make my heart happy and proud. And that really made my heart happy and proud. And it's just, I really appreciate people understanding how important doing those types of things are. So thank you for saying that, Elaine. Appreciate it.
Well done.
Just on that, Joyce, I just wanted to say thanks to all three schools, because I know Highgate and Swanton, everyone did something. On behalf of veterans, my son came home with like a little card that said, you're a veteran, and I just, you know, it goes a long way and it's appreciated. So I'm glad that all the schools in the district are taking the time to do that. So thanks to everyone.
Joyce, I'm glad that Val was able to do it again. How many years has she been doing this?
This was her second time coming to Franklin. It was, hearing about her experiences as one of the few women on a naval ship was, kids really pay close attention to that and are really interested, and did a nice job as always. We really appreciate people taking the time.
Joyce, I want to commend you for bringing in Brenda Gagne. I know Brenda, I've heard it. I think it's wonderful for students to hear her stories.
Yeah. I sat in on part of that, and I learned some things. And as Krista said when we were talking about it, the kids were really inspired to learn more. And Krista, the sixth grade teacher, actually went over to Circle of Courage on a Monday after that to observe. So it was great for everybody. Oh, I did want to just invite people to our holiday or concert on December 13th, because I know you're always looking for things to attend. And that's our pre-K to 6 concert on December 13th. That's our one that is during the day. So that's at 1 o'clock. The one in the spring is at night. But sometimes concerts with little kids can be painful. This actually, I promise it wouldn't be painful.
All right. Anything else for Joyce? we'll move right on to Highgate for Yeshua.
Hey, Yeshua. I wanted to just ask, you mentioned quickly the buses. Are you kind of looking forward to the cameras coming soon? Do you think that's going to kind of alleviate some of those he said, she said kind of issues?
Yeah, I think, and excuse me, I'm a little under the weather and my voice is shot usually by the end of the day. And of course we have conferences, so I've been talking since 7 a.m. But I definitely, what I'm hoping for is that students will know that we are going to know what happens on the bus. So you can choose to either tell me what happened on the bus, or I'll find the footage and then I will then prove that that happened on said bus. But it's almost a magic wand kind of thing. But I don't really know. I've never been at a school district actually that has them. But hearing from other folks that do have it, I'm just looking forward to the possibility for sure.
Well, I think we're taking action on that tonight, so appreciate kind of see that it's going to be able to put to some good use.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many different names did you have before you came up with Snow Wrecker?
We actually had 13, 12, because some classrooms or some grade levels came up with it together. But yeah, I want to say it was 13 or 12. But some of them were very creative, and then some were a little more simple. But I think what I really enjoy about it is that all the kids get to look at all the names, and as a classroom, they decide which one they want to vote on. And then it was just exciting, and our Facebook post got a lot of love because Miss Audrey did this slow motion of all the kids being excited right in front of the winter wrecker. And then actually the Agency of Transportation actually tagged our school and included some photos. So that was just really cool. It was just really exciting, and it's short. I mean, we're outside for 30 minutes, but it was just exciting. And the driver that actually came with Winter Wrecker is a former Highgate student. So that was also really cool. It was a really fun little quick thing that really doesn't take a lot of work, and it's just exciting. And even kids got to see like how big a snowplow really is, and they might see Winter Wrecker when we have a storm. So yeah, it was just really cool.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else for Yeshua? And we are going to move to Swanton.
So just a couple of things that I'd love to highlight from my report is our switch this year from the Scholastic Book Fair to the readathon. And that's been really, really incredible for our students. So our librarians really spent a lot of time thinking about how do we shift that week from something that's about buying something to more of a love of reading. And particularly when it can become more of a struggle to find the really high quality books that we want students to be reading. And those book fairs tend to come along more and more with toys, frankly, and less books and more toys, and those are the things that attract kids. So we wanted to move away from that and move toward this readathon model. And our librarians have done a tremendous amount of work in designing activities that just really get to the spirit of enjoying reading and celebrating books and celebrating literacy. So that has really kind of turned around that week for us away from being about purchasing and buying books to something that really is more focused on a love of reading. So that's been really exciting. The other thing that I really want to mention from my report is that National Mentoring Day was at the end of October, and that really is a very significant program for our school. We have a lot of teachers in year 1 and year 2, and we have a tremendous number of our existing staff that step up to be mentors and engage in that program. And it really is a commitment on their part to follow a structure that's been really carefully designed at the district level that all of our schools participate in. And we just took the opportunity at the end of October to celebrate the teachers in year 1 and year 2 and the work that they do with the mentors. And we just really appreciate that on top of everything else that our experienced teachers are asked to do, that they also agree to step up and be part of this program. It really does provide a tremendous support for our new teachers.
And Chris, I wanted to ask, how's the, because I see you have the after-school tutoring program going. I mean, are people taking advantage? That looks like a really good thing for 6th graders. Like, how's that going?
It's a great program. It's a no-cost program, which is fantastic. It's also very carefully coordinated with Crossroads, our after-school program. So students can go from tutoring, they go from dismissal to Crossroads, have an afternoon snack, go to tutoring, and then they can, if they're not directly picked up from tutoring, go back to Crossroads and take advantage of transportation after Crossroads to get home. So it's really, those two programs are really closely tied together. And the tutoring groups are small and provided by really skilled folks. So it really is an excellent program for us to have.
And I'll just add, and I know this was at Swanton, I know it was Highgate too. For anyone who doesn't know, the I Love to Read with Chris Johnson. So I went to the one at Highgate. That was really cool. Like he came out and he did like a magic show, and he's like doing tricks, and it was all about like learning to read and stuff. And it was a packed house at Highgate, and I think the attendance was just as good here at Swanton. I would encourage, even if you don't have kids, to go. He did a really, really good job, and it was just a lot of engagement. And how did we get Chris here? Like, how did that flow through? Because that was something that for like a 6:30 on what was it, like a Tuesday or Wednesday? Like it was great attendance.
Yeah, that was arranged by Kosha.
Okay. Wow.
Federal grant funded.
Okay.
It's part of our parent and family engagement, and actually we talked about it at our most recent admin or central office admin meeting, and we think we're going to try to do more because it was such a success.
Yeah, it was.
I chatted with him afterwards, and he has multiple shows. So he does a variety of different ones that kind of go more into math or go more into science. But it's a magic show, but it's also like a comedy show too.
It is, yeah.
Just as fun for adults as it is for kids. But he gets kid volunteers, and he just was very captivating. For
Yeah,
sure.
it was,
And
We had him last year here for a math assembly, and it went over really, really well. And we had told, and Kosha had helped us fund it last year. And so when they were looking for something this year, that was something that the coaches all talked about, because they had went over really well here last year. So I was a little nervous when he came back and was going to every school, because I was like, oh, I hope they still like him. But
yeah, well,
we had a great now here too, so it was great.
Well, make sure to put thank you to Kosha for that, because just from my perspective, like it really you saw like a nice sense of community too, and the kids were like really engaged in the show and learning about it. So yeah, that would be the kind of stuff that I think we see more of, which is especially if it's grant funded. That's a big win.
Rennick, since you're talking about that, in Chris's report, it was really well attended, but right after the show, we were able to get families around the building to see some different activities, some math and literacy activities, and they got to take home some materials and learn about how to use those materials with their kids and what skills they help build. So that was really nice.
Yeah, and especially to have the parents sort of there involved and seeing it too. Like, I think that goes a long way. So I thought that was fantastic. So thanks to all the schools.
Anything else for Swan?
Chris, Jessica, how many people do we participate in the after-school tutoring on average? How many students participate?
25? I'd say about 25.
Are they students who need it, or students that the teachers think need it?
Both.
Both.
Yep. So the referrals for that program can come from parents, teachers. They come from a variety of different places.
Okay.
one of the nice things about that program, in addition to the pieces I already spoke about, is that there are no kind of entrance requirements for that. You don't have to qualify for it in any way. So anyone who wants to be part of it can be part of it.
Good.
Thank you. All right, Yeshua and Joyce, you can leave and have a good night. Yeshua, I hope you feel better, and I hope everything goes great with the rest of the conferences.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Next agenda item, presentations and discussion, and we have the Swanton Continuous Improvement Team.
Yeah. Josh, will you put that up for us? Awesome, thank you. So back a while ago, I came and talked with you as we were starting the new continuous improvement plan leadership team here at Swanton. And you had asked, and we are excited to come back and give you an update on the work that group has started. So I'm going to kind of jog your memory a little bit about what that group is doing, and then we have some folks from that team here that are going to present on the different strands of work that's happening there right now. So if we look at the second slide, again, why was our team created? We want to increase student achievement by improving instruction and engagement. These are all goals right from our continuous improvement plan. We want to bolster the distributed leadership model. And as I had mentioned previously, our leadership model in the past has been kind of limited to our coaches and our administration, and we really wanted to expand that. And this group has a very broad representation from across the school. We really want our continuous improvement plan to be front and center in our decision making. And the CIP has always been the pillar of how we design our professional development, how we design our in-service and those kinds of pieces. But that's been done at a level that has not been as universally shared as we wanted that to be. So part of the goal of this team is to just broaden that plan and have that plan be really alive in the work that everybody is doing across the building. We want to increase the transparency of that work, making sure everybody understands that improvement plan. We want to capitalize on the expertise of staff, and we really want to make sure that all of the decisions we're making are based on data. So the charge of our team, this is the same charge you heard the last time around, driven by data from our MVSD local assessment plan, as well as the expertise, dedication, and creativity of our staff. Swanton's continuous improvement leadership team increases the academic and social emotional outcomes for all learners by regularly using the 3 pillars of the continuous improvement plan: safe and healthy schools, academic achievement, including a focus on historically marginalized populations, and attendance, engagement, and truancy, as a lens through which we proactively and reactively view our school-wide planning and decision-making. So like I said, we have a really broad representation of folks on this new leadership team. You can see we have a couple of teachers from our pre-K to 2 group. We have Kirsten from our 3 to 6 group, and Kirsten's going to present in just a minute. We have our librarian, Karen LaValle. Jen Mitchell is another teacher who's going to present in a minute on one of the strands. Our literacy and math coaches are engaged in this work. Special education. We have a member of our clinical team who also is representing NCSS, who we have a lot of different partnerships with. We have support staff representation, and I don't know why I deleted Tanya Hayes' name from that accidentally, but Tanya Hayes is our representative from MVSD. She's the co-director of student services. and Jess and I are members of that team as well. So what happens in these work groups? We meet every other week, and we work very hard to focus our work on data-driven collaboration. So it is all about the data in real time that we're gathering from students from a variety of sources. And of course, our continuous improvement plan, when we write that, is also all based on data. The formulation of questions for the whole group, planning supportive measures for existing initiatives, and designing new ideas. And those new ideas to support the improvement plan are what you're going to hear about in a couple of minutes. Progress monitoring of work in real time, so making sure that the things that we're doing, that we keep track of how successful they are, and if we're not getting the bang for our buck that we want from those things, we need to change them before a lot of time goes by. Or if we feel like they're highly successful, we stick with those things. And communication priorities, making sure we're being communicative with everyone in our school. So our team is broken up into 3 separate work groups. Those 3 work groups represent the 3 pillars of the continuous improvement plan. So academic achievement, Kirsten, Bridget, Kelly, and Deb are the 4 folks that are working on the academic achievement pillar. Michelle, Karen, Jan, and Tanya are working on the safe and healthy schools pillar. And Jen, Lois, Jess, and Molly are the 4 folks that are working on the attendance, engagement, and truancy pillar. And I have the opportunity to rotate between those 3 groups and be a part of all of that work, which is really exciting. So what we'd like to do for you now is we have 2 slides for each of the 3 pillars to just tell you what the work is about that we're doing in each one of those different pillars of the continuous improvement plan. So Kirsten's going to talk to you a little bit about the academic achievement work group.
You want me to stand here or?
Whatever you'd like to do, Kirsten.
Okay.
I'd like to have you up front.
Okay, thank you. I've been home not feeling well today, so pardon my appearance. I probably am covered with dog hair, but I will stand right here if that's okay.
And we go back many years, more than she would care to admit. What a great career.
All right. So thank you. I'm Kirsten, and I teach 6th grade here. And what we really wanted to, when we started talking about how to improve academic performance, we started looking at all of the things that we already do and how we could tweak them. And when the conversation really got going, we talked about one of the biggest factors that we feel and we hear consistently from teachers. It's the disruptive and distracting behaviors there. We have a lot of really young teachers who are just starting to learn how to manage their classrooms, and we also have a lot of children who are dysregulated and are struggling as well, and we really wanted to take some time to look at that. So we have 2 goals. One is to look at UDL, but the other one that we're really working on immediately is looking at creating a system where we can pair teachers, identify and pair teachers who might need some support with their classroom management with teachers that we have identified for whom that's a strength, and creating a structure where those teachers can get in to observe each other. An experienced teacher for whom classroom management is a strength can go into a classroom and kind of observe it, check it out, kind of note some things, sit and talk on more than just one occasion, not a one and done type of thing, but with a teacher about where she wants to make some growth. That teacher could come in and observe the experienced teacher. We could go back and create a partnership. We've kind of outlined a pilot where we would, if somebody was requesting some support, we would sit and we would meet with, go in and observe them. Coaches and other adults might come into my classroom, for example, and take my class so I could go into another teacher's room and meet with them. It's trying to find the time to do that so that it doesn't fizzle out and really provide those two professionals the opportunity to work with each other. It takes a long time to develop those skills. And it's really is something you can be very well prepared to teach lessons, but trying to manage those classrooms, especially with what we see now, can be challenging, and it can feel overwhelming. And so our goal was to create an environment that was conducive to all of our students having an opportunity where they all made growth, not just kids who are struggling, but kids who are where they need to be. We want them to grow as well, where we could challenge those children so that they weren't just sitting and waiting. We really wanted to create that environment. So we are looking at identifying classrooms with strong environments, classrooms in need of support, and it's not always a classroom that has a lot of referrals for our Swiss data, because a lot of times those could be teachers who are filling out the documentation, and there might be teachers who aren't. So we have a lot of different ways that we would look for that. And then just creating I think the biggest challenge will be creating the logistics and figuring those out. So our pilot will help us to do that. We can come back and tweak it. We can get feedback about what worked well and what didn't, and having that time to debrief and then go back into it. I think it can't really be that teachers meet once and then it's all set. It takes time, and so teachers may come in and say, I need help with transitions, and I need to kind of work through that. So we're hoping to have that kind of set. It's the end of the first trimester now, and to get ourselves started with that soon, so that we can present it to staff and then be able to start getting our hands dirty and getting into the classrooms. We also look to eventually have an opportunity where it's not just teachers who've been identified as needing those support, most likely by coaches and people who are in those rooms, but somebody who may say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this, I would like to be able to have some support. And again, while we have a lot of new teachers, we have some really skilled new teachers to our school, and sometimes it could be somebody who's been around for a long time and has a particularly challenging dynamic in their classroom. But we really felt, when we looked at what's getting in the way a lot of times for instruction, it is those behaviors. And it isn't necessarily as easy as one might think to try to be able to manage that. So that's one of the ways we want to really support our teachers. The other piece with the UDL, we figure through our professional development, that would be more of a multi-year type of thing that COSHA and our administrators would work with us on, so that we all have a common basis for instruction, but we want to provide opportunities to differentiate that professional development so that, again, everyone is getting what they need.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. One of the things that I've really appreciated, and I just want to make sure for folks that might not know, when Kirsten talks about UDL, that's a reference to Universal Design for Learning. And what that's all about is just making sure that all of our students are able to access the pieces that we're teaching. And that looks differently for different students, and making sure that we are providing those successful access points for different learners. So making sure that differentiation happens. This group, and I'll make this PowerPoint, these slides available to the group. This group has really focused on, when you talk about behavior and classroom management and those things, you might wonder how is this focus different from Safe and Healthy Schools, for example. And the target here really is about clearing the way for instructional time in the classroom, and that's how we increase our academic performance, is by reducing some of these other pieces with the purpose of increasing instructional time. So that's a lot of what these folks are talking about. Thanks, Kirsten.
Can we ask some questions?
Sure.
So, with that, like, how long have you been teaching?
This is year 37.
Okay, so you have a little bit of experience. So, in your opinion, right, because I'm not educated, right, is the increase in the behavioral issues, is it more of a trend of the newer teachers, sort of what they receive for teaching? Is it more of a trend of like just the students themselves, or is it more of like, because obviously teaching in the systems has changed over time, right? Like how we educate now versus 23 years ago is different. So is there some sort of like just a trend that you've seen or a change? Because, you know, obviously a program like this is great, but like what's your opinion of it in terms of like what needs to be like really done to kind of like
so I've been doing this for a long time, and I see a huge difference I would say even within the last 5 to 10 years especially, with a lot of students coming in who are very dysregulated. Their ability to communicate their needs and advocate for themselves is just very different. It's hard for them to do that. Kids who have learned where the strategies to get what they need, it might be just throwing, struggling, and might be becoming, yelling and that sort of thing, not knowing how to sit and work with the groups, not knowing how to, they don't have any routines or structures a lot of times, and coming into school from, even at 5, sometimes there are things that I know I did with my children, my parents did with me. They're not having those experiences. And I see some children where the way they get attention is in a way that makes it extremely difficult when you're in a classroom with 12, 15 other kids to function. It's knowing how to be able to have those, those habits of mind you might have, to be able to work through a challenge. So I see a big difference in what the skills kids are coming into school with at a very young age, and how they get their needs met. We also have a lot of kids who come from homes that where they've experienced there's no structure, or there's a lot of trauma, and so it's knowing how to be able to work with that. And it might have been when I started, there might have been one child who had some extreme behaviors in a few grades, and now it's several within a classroom. And so when you have, for me as a parent, at this point I've taught well over 1,000 kids. I've raised 3 kids, and I have the experience to be able to think to myself, this too shall pass. I know what growth I'm going to see. But I've had years where, it's really challenged me. And when you're trying to meet the needs of kids in a classroom where there's, you have kids at grade level, I've had kids at grade level, 6th grade, above, but also reading at a 1st and 2nd grade level, and trying to figure out how am I going to support all of those needs and then have behaviors is really hard. It's hard work to do, so it can beat you up. And so being able to work with teachers and to be able to sit and kind of give them a chance to see that in progress, I think will be helpful. When we sat down, Bridget and I sat with our coaches, immediately thought, we'll change all of these things around forms and the process. And what both Bridget and I said, if you really want to improve some instruction, we got to tackle the environment and how we handle those behaviors. And it took me a good 10 years to be able to develop that practice with kids, and I'm still learning constantly. So it's not really the instruction that teachers are providing, it's how to manage all of that for all of those academic and social emotional needs in the classroom. And it can be overwhelming. So hopefully this will help, because for me, I learn by doing, and just as my students do, I can go and read articles and be presented, and it's in one ear and out the other. And if you sit there and I have somebody to guide me, and I can do it in chunks, just like when I'm teaching students, I can grow more. And so that's a conversation we had.
So really it's offering like that experience to like a new teacher who
Or somebody who's just struggling with a group. I've had groups well into my career, all of a sudden I was like, this is harder for some reason. And being able to go see how different people do things, it gives you new, fresh perspectives, and that's.
I just want to say, what are you finding is working to help that? Like what strategies, like inside a classroom?
Inside a classroom?
You have that kind of behavior.
For me, establishing relationships with kids, finding ways. So this is probably going to sound wrong to say, but my number one first thing isn't the academic piece. That will happen. It's building that culture and those routines so that kids know what to expect. And I know that if it flops and the ceiling's crashing down around me and it's not going well, I've been there before so many times that it doesn't ruffle me. I don't panic. I have that to fall upon. I can lend that to a teacher. But for me, the biggest thing is establishing relationships with kids and their families. Because the families that I've worked with, I've never met a family who didn't want their child to do well in school. They want to know that I think their kid's great. And because they love you know how we're all parents, most of us, you love your kid, you want to know that when they go there, that I see good in them. And so those relationships are important both ways. Conferences, nice opportunity to sit and listen to families and hear what they want for their child. And then communication, constant. But there are things that I've learned that took me a long time, and through the example of some pretty fantastic educators who set a really nice example for me, and we need that.
Well, thank you. We're very lucky to have someone.
What's your name?
Rennick.
Rennick. Oh, Rennick. Is that your first name?
Yes.
Oh, are you from which? I'm sorry. Of a community? Are you from?
Well, I live in. My kids go to Highgate. Highgate, but it's actually Swanton too.
Okay.
It's like right on the line.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's
So,
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that you'll notice about this group and all of the groups is that the planning and the work that we're doing right now is for right now. We're not talking about the fall, we're not talking about next year, we're talking about what are we doing by the end of trimester 1, for example. Okay. Safe and healthy schools. Jess is going to talk about that.
So this isn't the actual tier that I work in, but I certainly dabble in a little bit of all of them. This team really looks at that social, emotional competencies booklet that kind of went out, and they're really looking to focus on some of the tier 2 and tier 3 practices that happen in classrooms. They really do want to promote and teach the strategies that staff will utilize when supporting students across settings and deepen staff understanding of that trauma-informed practices. So you can really see the overlap that Kirsten was talking about. So we know that we've got kids that come in with trauma. We know that they're going to be needing some SEL support. And so this group really does dig into how are we going to do that? How can that be this overarching thing that we're all doing, we're giving to all kids regardless of where they're at. And for the tier 2 and tier 3, how can we give the kids who need a little bit more or a lot more what they need? Some of the ways that they'll assess progress is just the reduced number of disciplinary referrals for students who are acquiring tier 2 and tier 3 supports, and then an increase in SEL skills as would be indicated through our insight screener that each kid takes. And then some of the work that's in progress is, I know that they've already updated some of the forms to closely match our data systems. So that is all kind of kept in our Communication Central on our website, and then supports within our existing system so that the mentoring and SEL meetings, those all take place. And then more PD on trauma-informed practices and follow-up time to be able to talk as teams and in groups.
Have we focused on that through our professional development, on the PD and trauma?
Yes. So in service. The keynote speaker definitely touches upon that, Joelle Van Lent. She has for a couple of years. We have a committee, a district committee that does a lot of the social emotional competencies work, and they are represented by each member of the school, and they come back and report out and give suggestions. There's units that every grade level is required to teach, so that we have, like those are more like the high leverage, but that we can guarantee that all kids have seen and have received some of those units. And it's definitely, it's ongoing work, but it's important work.
Did I read earlier that Tanya Hayes is on this?
Yes.
One of the reasons that all of these strands are obviously very important, but one of the things that makes this strand particularly important is, as Kirsten kind of spoke to, we tend to see right now a smaller group of students with high needs that demand a tremendous amount of resources. And by focusing on some of those tier 2 and tier 3 students and supporting them, that will free up resources that can be redistributed and kind of rethought more universally. So that's an approach that these folks are thinking about as well. Okay. We are going to go to engagement and truancy, and Jen Mitchell is going to talk about that.
I've been working on this with Jess, and one of our focuses is really fine-tuning our tiered system for supporting students who are chronically absent, to be kind of blunt about it. So, and this kind of goes right into it ties right into the other two areas really, really well. So some of the things that the goals are to create a very clear plan and system to coordinate communication with these families and the team at school that wraps around these students in terms of supporting their attendance coming to school, and to really boost the connection that these students have with adults in the school and identifying who their preferred positive adult is. Every student, I would hope, has at least one adult in the building that they look forward to seeing. So that's one of the goals, is to identify who that adult is for every single student in the school. So we have a team that meets monthly to go over data. There is electronic documents to share with team members, and only those team members that need to see it, to keep track of how many days students have been absent, who's communicated with the family, so that there isn't any overlap and parents don't get multiple messages or slip through the cracks and have nobody contact them at all. And this week we're going to be introducing to teachers a very, very simple Google form so that students can identify who their positive adult is. 2nd grade through 6th grade are going to do it through a Google form. I'm going to go in, being the tech integrationist, into kindergarten and 1st grade and work with those classes on helping students fill this out. The way I have it set up, they can just voice record themselves saying it, so they don't have to type. There's lots of accommodations that are very UDL friendly that we can use to help the students be independent with how they're doing this. So that's the goal, and the more we can provide those positive supports for these students and help them feel more successful in the classroom with UDL strategies and relationships, the more they'll want to come to school.
So this group will definitely be, once we've collected that data, this group will identify students who have responded that they do not have an adult that they've identified, and we'll make a very purposeful effort to reach out to them and make connections for them, so that 100% of our students are able to identify a positive, trusted adult that they have here at school, which is a huge marker of success.
And the adult doesn't have to be a teacher.
No,
Nope.
It could be any adult in the school. Some of the kids love chatting with some of the custodians. It can be anybody that these students look forward to seeing and sharing any kind of news with. So.
I wanted to just mention 2 last quick things. We have 2 other big pieces of work that are happening that are directly related to our continuous improvement plan. We're building on our tier 1 and our tier 2 and our tier 3 SEL supports to supplement the teaching of our SEL competencies in the district using Second Step. So Second Step is our social emotional learning curriculum that's used across the board in each grade level here, and we're really working very hard to have teachers implementing that, and our counselors are implementing that in their work as well. So that's a universal strategy that's in place right now, and providing consultation for classrooms and students to improve executive functioning. So when Kirsten talked about some of those really basic things, how do I function as part of a group in the classroom? How do I organize my backpack? How do I take notes? How do I do some of those really basic things that make you successful as a student, the routines, those pieces. We're working with a consultant, Sarah Ward, who's been in, and so far she has been in the classroom of every first and second year teacher here at Swanton. She's observed, she's had an opportunity to meet privately with that teacher after that observation. I had the chance to go into many of those classrooms with her and do some co-observations and provide some support to teachers that way, starting with those first and second year teachers. She came to a staff meeting and presented to the entire faculty and staff at a staff meeting. And I would say that her work is some of the best received work that I've been a part of for a while. Teachers are really excited about those pieces because they are the basic underpinnings of what helps students be successful. So we've been working with COSHA to write into our grant amendment some additional time with Sarah this year to bring her back and have her be involved in some more ways between now and the end of the year, and we're really excited about that.
What's her background? What's she teach?
She's actually a speech and language pathologist by trade, with a tremendous amount of training and executive functioning.
She was an assistant principal at one point. She's down in the Georgia area, Georgia State.
Yeah. We would be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have a question, just sort of going back to something you had said about having experienced a classroom where you have sixth graders who are at level, above level, but then also those students who are seriously behind. How do we get to that point? Like, at what point do we stop and prevent the student from continuing on in grade levels? I guess that's sort of a larger question for the principals, but if we're at a point where we've got a sixth grader who's about to go off to MVU, which is a whole different world, and they're not even close to being at grade level for reading or math, when is enough enough, and when do we raise our hand and we stop pushing them through and we say we can't in good conscience do this to the student because it's just sort of passing the buck?
Yeah, I think the big answer to that, and we had a really extensive conversation about this today, the big answer to that is that has to start in K-1-2. And it really has to be a real push for us to concentrate resources with younger students. So the question really should not be, what do we do with a sixth grader who is ready? The question should be, how are we supporting this first grader who is struggling so that they're not getting to sixth grade, having that struggle that you're talking about. So in the bigger picture, that's the answer to the question. In the meantime, we have students in these grade levels that are struggling, and we do have to think about how are we best using our resources. We know one of the things that we want to do right now is really, again, not waiting until next year. This is an urgent issue for us to address right now. We want to reallocate some of the resources that we have in our building. Jess and I are going to take the next couple of weeks, and when we come back from break in January, we want to make some reallocations of resources to really focus on K-1-2 so that we're not getting to where you're talking about. And we need to think about We are still going to, while we boost those students up, we are still going to have students in 3, 4, 5, 6 that are struggling. And how are we supporting them is also the question too. But I think the big answer to your question and the longer term answer to your question is we don't let them get there.
Right.
That's the answer.
And I think it would be nice to have sort of an update at some points, like how are we handling the students who are in 3 through 6? Because we should never have that. And then, so what steps are you able to take in the meantime as we work on this sort of longer term plan, and making sure that you have the resources that you need to address it, if there's anything you can do.
For sure.
Sometimes some of those children may be on an IEP, but there are children who are not. And so it is something that we're always grappling with.
Yeah.
Good question.
We have a lot of conversations too about measuring progress in a couple of different ways. Measuring progress in proficiency and how many of our students meet proficiency, and also measuring progress in growth, right? So we want a high volume of growth, and for students that are not at a proficiency level, we want more than a year's worth of growth in a year. And so that's the push,
right?
Is making sure that for a student that's right on grade level and is hitting the mark, a year's worth of progress might be adequate in that particular case. For a student that's a couple of years behind, our goal has to be making 3 years worth of progress in a year to get them up to grade level.
Julie, I feel like we had a conversation about this last year, and I forget who it was, but wasn't there data to support that, like, that's not really working? I feel like we had that conversation.
Well,
because like
it's real, retention, holding kids back is bad for students long term. We've known that for 40 plus years. It's not good. The outcomes are really bad. You know, incarceration and teen pregnancies and like all of the things you can imagine. And doing things the way we always do them is insufficient. Mm-hmm. So the conversations that we've been having have been, how do we create the system of high expectation for our kids? Because our kids have a lot of potential and ability, and whether it's I've come from trauma and I don't know how to settle myself and I'm not accessing education really easily, mm-hmm. or I'm just not getting it in this way, I need more. We need to look at how we address those, and we need to make sure we have good instruction that's evidence-based and that our kids get more. But oftentimes we just want to love kids a lot and ask less of them, and that's a guarantee of bad outcomes for kids. So I'm pushing a lot. I mean, I'm the broken record that people are sick of hearing, but it really, we have to do things differently and not the way that is necessarily always comfortable, or, you know, that's why we were talking about professional learning for our specialists, so that they can understand it's not about we're trying to shake things up for the sake of it or to cut money or any of those things. It's about what we're doing, when we're doing it, and how we're doing it.
The reading program,
yeah,
in and of itself, so this is the first time I've ever taught a reading program, writing program. And it's different, it's hard, it's hard. I mean, the questions are challenging. And so, but it's, the way that it's structured will give me the opportunity to meet those kids at those levels with a power goal that they need. And so I'm, and all the way up. And those kids who are, you were just talking about who are where they need to be, having conversations with them about some pretty sophisticated text. Yet it gives me a structure and some materials for me to work with kids who are still working on decoding 3-syllable words, mm-hmm. things like that. I can give them that bit in addition to having them work at a grade level text and finding ways for them to access it. But that's something different, and it's pushing me, and it's hard kind of,
Pushing it.
but it's, you know, it's, it needed to be done,
That's great to hear.
yeah.
And are we getting the buy-in from the parents? Cause you mentioned that, right? Like they want their kids to do good, cause.
Oh, I believe,
Well, because we
Yeah.
have like, I think our district has one of like the better after-school programs that are
Yes.
offering tutoring and services. And, you know, I assume there's an assumption that we're like saying, go to these programs, right? Like help them catch up. So, you know, hopefully you're seeing that from the parents too, because I think it just makes a big difference, so.
I actually had a grandparent who was telling me how they couldn't believe the writing that was happening with their, maybe fourth grader, right? And how impressed they were with this reading program. And it was like, is it in all the schools? I'm like, yes, it's in all the schools. But it's, you know, it's exciting to see kids. I was in classrooms today, and I always hang out with squirrely boys who don't want to sit, you know, they're my jam. So, you know, seeing them read books about bugs, or, you know, it's the nonfiction that even kids who struggle to read, it's so engaging and they want to be doing it so much more. It's exciting to see, even though I know how hard it is to learn a completely new way of teaching them. So we have a lot to be doing.
it's a good challenge.
But it's great to see the excitement on kids' faces.
And that
they're-
we're doing
they
it, that,
want
you
to do
know,
it.
we're not just saying like we need to do things different. We really are, and we have a team that is embracing that.
I go into every single grade level, every single classroom, and seeing the same structure, routine,
Yeah.
and way things are taught with the same language being used about it all. I'm really excited to see where kids go from kindergarten on up with the continual use of this program. Because even in kindergarten, the things that are being asked, they understand it, and it's using sophisticated language. So that as the kids move on through the grades, they'll be able to make the connections with what they learned before and what they're learning now, and bridge that gap and not feel lost because a different word is being used to describe the same thing that they learned last year. So it's really, I'm excited to see it because I'm seeing really good things happening in every single classroom.
Well,
Rennick, I think that the key to what you said goes along with what Kirsten said, and that is just the relationships with kids, but also the relationships with families. I had a really kind of eye-opening response from a parent yesterday who I had picked up the phone to call to suggest that their student join the after-school tutoring program. And in that conversation, that parent said, you know, thank you very much. And it was just very interesting because they said, I want to thank you very much, not for taking the time to call, but for taking the time to know. And that was really telling for me that their appreciation was about the fact that I even knew that out of 635 students, their child had a struggle and we had a solution to that. And all that takes time, but it's about those relationships.
well, I know we spent a lot of time on this, but, you know, we're gonna zoom out and we're about to get into budget season and the legislators are gonna be talking about cuts and all these things, and I wish, and like an hour-long conversation about the difficulties and the real challenges that are happening 10 years now, like now than 10 years ago, was really heard.
Yeah.
Because it's a different level that's needed to like just educate, and like the school is doing a lot, you know, Coach is funding grant funding programs, we're providing like after school, we're having these programs, and you know, 4 or 5 months from now, people are gonna be like, you only need one teacher in a classroom, and it's getting that message out like to the community, and then honestly to the legislators when they start developing these things, like this is a challenge that we're facing. So I think it's very important because I've heard from everyone down from elementary classrooms to here to MVU. We're getting a report, I think, next time from MVU about the behaviors are affecting the outcomes. And so I think it's good to continually just keep talking about it, because you're right, we shouldn't be passing kids, but if we're hamstrung and holding them back and we don't have the services, and it's just,
I will say, like, to your point of the legislature is going to be back in session and having them hear these struggles, I think they are, especially with the development of the new commission on the future of public education. They're doing tours. They were in St. Albans 2 weeks ago. It was a really pretty strong turnout, and I was there, and it was a wonderful opportunity to share these struggles and share all of these demands that are on our schools, on our teachers, with such little support. So I do have hope that they are hearing these things. There were a lot of teachers there. There were a couple board members, and the whole thing was roundtables. Like, it wasn't just us being talked to. It was the commission members, the interim secretary of ed, going and sitting at the different tables and hearing these things. So I hope that they are taking that back and taking it into consideration. But of course, it's all of our duty to reach out to our individual legislators and make sure that they are aware of what's happening in their districts.
Thank you for your time. My goal was 1 minute a slide for 14 slides, so I really appreciate your time with this.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
I don't want to leave this discussion without making a comment. Maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I'm also talking with some legislators. And there are a lot of very fine legislators in the Vermont legislature. And I don't think it's as much doom and gloom as we might think. I think there might be the potential for it. But I think as school board members, we need to talk to legislators. But I think that, and I don't know if it's on Vermont Digger, but there was a wonderful article written by a guy that's on WDEV, Bill Schoolboard, talking about some of the issues, not just education. And the world of politics can be a dirty game, and everybody's trying to get the microphone. So I'm real optimistic that, there'll be some talk about maybe reducing the money. But I think in the end, we're going to be all right if we stay positive. It's easy to get sucked in that big whirlwind, that doom and gloom, and we're not going to get any money, and you aren't going to. I think we need to speak to what we're doing for students. What are we doing for students? And I heard a couple of remarks. I was very impressed with Kirsten, but Chris too. You know, we have a responsibility to do the best we can. But one thing we can't forget is, how many hours a day do we give those students for 180 days? We have 365 days in a year, most years, some extra. And we get them probably for what, a third of the day? A fourth of the day?
About seven.
So that whole thing of talking here about safety, engaging the parents. Kirsten said she's never met a parent that didn't want their child to succeed. And I'll put an exclamation point on that and agree. But it's up to us to make that. You know, we deal with parents that didn't have a very good school experience. Yes. I mean, I can remember parents telling me, come and visit school. I didn't like school at all, and I didn't think school liked me. So, plenty of work to do, but if we stay positive, stay on the high road, I'm optimistic. But we're going to come out all right.
Don, and that was I think I said at last meeting, that was the message from the VSBA at the conference that we attended with Purette and Julie, that talk about what we are doing and just keep talking about what we are doing.
We are working hard and we're doing well, and we need them to be our partners.
Thank you, Kirsten and Jen.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
And Jess, but you don't get to go.
When you hear teachers like that, it gives us a lot of hope.
Yeah.
These guys are just exactly what you want to see in teaching our kids. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Next agenda item is budget input survey results. Julie, are you going to put that on the?
I am. Is it going to? Is that connected to the?
These different ones, the lowest.
There it is. It's lagging. I have it full screen on my computer. Is it not sharing? Or is that somebody else sharing, Josh?
Where do I see who's sharing? Well, we have 3 of the exact same person on right now.
I'm in there too, but I'm not sharing my screen.
Okay,
haven't
I
touched
shared my
computer.
screen, but
It's not this one?
it's not showing slideshow,
Those are not
whatever.
my
I mean,
tabs,
it's fine.
it's not-
It's just not.
That's weird.
Yep, it is. Talk amongst yourselves. I will do the sort of background, which is, every year we look at getting input into our budget, things that are important to the community. I am logged in as central office.
Because I have
as
you
a
up there.
co-host. Yep. And I tweaked a couple questions to get at class size and retaining high quality teachers.
Why not?
I'm sure you have.
The bigger issue is that when I try and advance the slides, they're not advancing.
Yeah.
So.
You can always just talk to it, Julie.
Yeah, that's true.
And why don't I just unshare? And we'll
Yeah, we can. It's very weird.
I'll just speak to it, and what I do plan on doing is putting this information in the district newsletter. So that way, because it goes out to all staff and it goes out on our website for the community to see. So we'll make sure that, I'm gonna stop the share here. And I will just speak to it.
You can try to share it in there just to see if it works.
So the first thing I asked is, who are you as you're responding? Of course, this goes out using our school messenger, Bright Arrow system. It goes on our website, it goes on our Facebook page, it gets shared to the community Facebook pages. We do get a number of non-parent community members that respond. We've been really trying to get that demographics input specifically. So we had about 44% of respondents were elementary parents, about 22% were middle high school parents, about 13% both. And because that was a complaint last year, I want to click a box that shows I've got kids in both elementary and middle high school. And then also residents without children in schools. So we had about just under 20% respondents from that group of folks. So that was really, really helpful. And again, the statement that we have traditionally made investments in many priority areas such as employee wages and benefits, building infrastructure, technology, transportation, and extracurricular activities. And while the board is establishing its funds, we really want your input as to where we can make further investments and prioritize our investments, not even necessarily further investments. So, Laura, if you just sort of go ahead a couple, I don't know why, I just have the bad vibes of technology today, apparently. So, again, competitive pay and benefits to recruit and retain high-quality employees always is a high priority when we give out this survey. And
stop touching things.
This computer decided to just stop everything that it was doing before I had it presenting. So that's awesome.
I'll keep talking. Over 50% of people said that competitive pay is essential, and another third saying it's important. So, you really have large percentage of people who are supportive of prioritizing our paying our employees, which is good since that's just under 80% of our budget. And that's where most of our money goes. is trying to pay salaries and benefits.
That was me.
The next one is really one that I added, which is staffing levels that keep class sizes reasonable. And I really wanted to be specific with the community about what that means. Our educational quality standards are an average height of 20 in grades K through 3 and 25 in 4 and up. And last time I shared with you some of our average class sizes. They're 19, 17, 16. So we work really hard to make sure that we have efficient and effective numbers, but we want to make sure that they're responsive classroom sizes too. So that was a good response.
Peter was just noticing that the one in the drive, it looks a little bit different. It's because we have more responses.
And the slideshow will update, so I'll make sure that it gets updated. Instructional programming, such as, and I wanted to give examples of what that means, because it doesn't mean just books. It also means the coaches that work with teachers, the intervention services we provide, the tutoring, and the instructional materials. And that was also something that 70% of people thought was essential or important.
I was kind of surprised it wasn't higher, to be honest.
Yeah.
There were a couple of them where I was like, what? But that one in particular, I was very sort of taken
Coaching?
aback.
Good
like,
to have. It's
yes.
the good to have.
Yes, the good to have for
where-
intervention and coaching. I'm like, no.
I don't think just anybody knows what that can look like
Exactly.
too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
They may think
that's
coaching
true.
means athletic coaching.
Yeah, good.
And I led with that,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of, we're writing something as educators and it doesn't necessarily translate, but it's still very strong.
Yeah.
We're also talking about like a sample of 142.
Oh, absolutely.
Depends on who's responding and who's doing that. So.
Services and supports for students who struggle with social and behavioral needs. Again, about 70% finding that essential and important. Career and technical education, I've listed out the ag program at MVU, work-based learning, apprenticeships, work readiness and placements, really high. Number of respondents saying that that's essential and important. After school, I'm always surprised by this. Enrichment and extended learning programs, extracurriculars, summer programming. We had about 46% saying it was important or essential. But if you're one of those people upon whom you rely on that support, then you're really thinking it's essential. But again, that good to have is where I'm seeing the increase as people are concerned about budgets. Maintaining the current level of student transportation, I was not surprised by this, 65, 64%, finding that essential. But again, the good to have is a little, I don't recall 26% of people saying, oh, I don't know how essential it is. Well, if you don't have a car and you live out in West Swanton, you think it's pretty essential, but.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is whether or not it applied to you.
Oh,
right?
it
So,
always
like,
is, it always is,
if you need
for
after
sure.
school, you're like essential. If you like don't have kids in the school district, you're like, meh, you don't need a bus either. You don't need anything. So.
Absolutely true. But you can see some sort of broad support for certain things, like capital investments, right? You've got 75% of people saying, yes, that's important and essential.
Well, that tends also to be capital investments, even if you don't have kids in the district or you don't even work affiliated.
You don't want the
like
school falling apart.
Yeah, you like the money going to those things, so those tend to just generally get
Right, like
better support.
when we ask about support of kids' behavioral needs, we're not gonna not support kids' behavioral needs. It's required for them, it's required for the other kids to have the supports that they need so their learning is not interrupted. All of those things. But if I don't have kids in school, I've had plenty of people say, well, back in my day, right, it was just one-room schoolhouse and this and that, and we have the kids that we have to serve, right? But again, if your kids are in school and you're worried about your child's education, and disruptions in your child's classroom, you think that's really important. So it's very subjective, of course. And we didn't ask like where you get your information because we did that in the last survey. We didn't want to be redundant. We had a lot of good information on that. And on this one, we did a check all that apply because I know people like to respond to more than one thing. And you know, a lot of people responding that they want a quality education for their kids or for kids in our communities. And a good chunk of folks saying that they want to keep their property taxes as low as possible. Electing school board members is always the lowest reason why people vote. I don't know what that means. But also just you know, I always vote, there's an election, it's my responsibility, it's what I do. Yeah. But I just think it's always good to ask people like, are you motivated? And I think we're seeing that the majority of folks are motivated by having quality schools. So I was pleased. I think that our response was about similar to other years, but we have continued to see the number of folks without kids in school participating. So it's really good to get their voice. I didn't see any dramatic turns.
Good to know.
Thank you, Julie.
Sorry about the technology. Okay.
You just blame Derek.
Because he's not
For
here.
not being here.
Alright, next agenda item is gonna be the budget draft 2.
Okay, so in the drive is the revamped version of the draft 2. I just wanted to point out, just to make sure that people understand, because we had to make this landscape to fit all the columns in, but I think the information is really important. We still have the fiscal year 24 budget, and then the actual expenses, we have 25 budget, but then we now have both drafts, so you can see on the right, there's a variance column from draft 1 to draft 2, and from 25 to 26, so I just want to point that out. But I'm going to go to the budget book. And I'm going to go down. Well, actually, let's start at the top. Julie, do you want to go over the staffing data first or after?
Let me look at it up close.
Or do you want me to do budget first?
I think it would be interesting to see, what, I haven't looked at the spreadsheet since you linked it in there.
That's interesting for sure.
So,
Oops, sorry.
collaborating with Bill Kimball, who is superintendent of Maple Run, he's been doing a lot of work looking at the state data and national data on staffing patterns. And for his school district, he was looking at how Maple Run compares to the other Franklin County schools, and then how they compare to the Chittenden County schools around us, and then the state and national trends. And he, from the get-go, when I saw him working on the spreadsheet, and I'm like, what you got there, Mr. Kimball? He said, oh, you're getting this. I'm sharing it with all of you so that you can really be talking about how, what our staffing patterns look like in comparison to one another. And we are the bright blue bar on the left side, and you can see, now these are our percentages of your staff, right? So again, we talk about 76+% of our staff. We have 422, I think, employees in the district that are on this spreadsheet, and I probably should be looking at a copy of this spreadsheet in front of me so that I can see it more properly.
We can probably get rid of the other because that's not really important.
But the main piece here, and sorry, I came from a meeting of the with the Abnaki PAC right before this, so I didn't have time to open everything up on my own spreadsheet. Is this linked separately, Laura, in the?
You sent this to me.
Yes.
Oh.
And
I went to the email.
that's what I will do.
Okay.
It's just hard for me to see. But you can see Missisquoi now on the left, and then the other school districts to the right within Franklin County. The orange is Grand Isle. They serve just under 600. Thank you. Thank goodness. They serve just under 600 students, so their numbers tend to be a little smaller as a percentage. But then you have Franklin West in green. You have Maple Run in the lighter blue, and then you have Franklin Northeast. So you can see as a percentage of their total staffing where we are compared to others. Then the next area is support services, which are counselors, therapists, other categories like that.
So just so I'm tracking,
Mhm.
so that number is
A percentage.
a percentage of against other districts?
That's a percentage of our total staffing. But you can see.
The percentage of
you
our
can
total
see,
distribution.
Right.
Got it.
There's other ways of looking at that, but I just want to go down the list of the different categories. Paraprofessional is the one in the middle. You can see that we have a number of paraprofessionals as a total percentage of employee. Then there's student services, which, Laura, you're going to remind me of the different categories. Student services is where special ed is or where behavioral services are.
It should be behavioral services.
That's what I
yeah.
thought. I
Student
didn't want to say the
management-
wrong
Student
thing.
management things, yeah.
And then leadership as a total percentage of staffing, where Missisquoi is a much smaller number compared to others.
Would leadership be
our
central office?
Yes.
So
administration.
All
I
administrators.
think that's really important because we heard so much about you have too many central office people, you have too many central office
Yeah.
people. And I appreciate we
Yeah.
don't, and we've said we don't, but being able to put it there next to other districts in the area, I think that's really telling.
Are principals in that group?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other are just folks that were not able to be categorized under these are federal categories as well as state. Quickly, same information, us in the blue,
This one, Julie.
with Chittenden County schools. So you can see where we are. Even when you look at leadership, there we are again, one of the lowest compared to Chittenden. That's
And
really.
you have to consider what it's costing Chittenden County for all these brackets and the fact that
Oh, yeah.
So
And here, the third one is our district, Vermont as an average, and then United States norms. So you can look at in the US, that's the orange bar, the percentage of a complete staff in a school in another state is going to have to be a higher percentage of teachers than paras, for example. But if you look at Vermont and us, we have a higher percentage of paras compared to others. And they have a lot of leadership categories in other parts of the country and in Vermont, and there we are at the bottom with small number. And again, that's, I think, mostly we've consolidated a lot of responsibilities and share a lot of responsibilities. And we're probably, I think we're the 12th largest district in Vermont, so we're on the top half of things. And I think we're pretty efficient when it comes to those positions. But we always are talking about, can we trade in some support staff positions and move them to professional support services positions. So we're always looking at ways to do that.
I think it's tricky too, because I do think that in different states they've got different models for how special education looks.
Absolutely.
And we're very inclusive in Vermont, and in order to do that, we do need those kiddos to have additional supports.
We do, and other states have higher levels of inclusion and outcomes with fewer paras than Vermont does. So that's a narrative we have to shift, because it's not actually true any longer. So I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's important data to show as we're moving into the budget.
Julie, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, Is the yellow in between the blue and the orange, is that state?
That's Vermont.
Okay, and what is the category? Or-
That's teacher, oh, you're looking at the fourth one?
Mhm.
Oh, this one over here?
That one there.
Student
Yeah, right.
services.
That's student services, so clinicians, school counselors, behavior management folks,
So Vermont ranks pretty highly there,
yes.
whether highly is good or not.
Would it be worthwhile to post and share some of this data? Cause like
JR's gonna do
yeah,
that.
cause like
Fine.
Megan was saying, I mean.
It's
the-
really helpful.
The amount that we do with a lot less, and again, as we kinda get into budget season, like, I think just highlighting that we already are a low spending district and we're very competitive and we already have less admin, we have less than the state and the national average, like, I don't know, just keep talking about it. Just keep talking about it so that when people argue and say, well, you should cut, you know, for us too, I think it also makes it more critical, cause if you cut one admin position, that's a huge loss when you already have less. If you cut a few student services, those are huge losses when you already are pretty low, so I think that's really good data.
Yeah.
And JR said it was already shared somewhere, beginning
Well-
of the week, potentially? Not all of it, but.
I think that perhaps Maple Run shared it in their budget presentation. I know that they did, so that may have been out there, but they obviously have their school district first and are comparing themselves to the other communities. But it's really helpful. And we do a lot, especially as the state is talking about teacher ratios and staffing ratios and what should your caseload size be, and we can expect some things coming from the state in those areas in the next few years. We've been working really hard to make sure we know what our numbers are, what our class size ratios are, and really be looking at where we have room to do better and where we have gaps. So are we shifting resources to where the gaps are? So to that end, we've been talking about
Great information as we head into budgeting, I think. So,
Points of interest.
yes. And this, I don't think this has like a specific purpose, or maybe it has all of the purpose for me, but a lot of what we're doing across the state and the country currently with school spending is breaking the numbers down differently, and you've heard me talk about that a little bit. So I just wanted to provide some data here that is a different way of looking at things. Looking at plant operations per square foot, labor costs of our operations per square foot. I can tell you in that area, we are definitely below the national average or industry standard. And then over here, in particular, looking at transportation, I thought that was interesting. So all of our transportation, if we broke it down by student, is $1,700 a student a year, basically. I was pleasantly happy that I saw this comparison. Special ed percentage of students in out of our population that's in special ed or receiving special ed students is very similar to the percentage of our total expenses in our budget, and really that's how it should be. Also, I just want to draw your attention down to this one right here, the second from the bottom, total staff benefit load percentage. That's the percentage of a salary that the benefit cost makes up, basically. And you can see that number is continuing to grow. This is the one that our insurance company and the state is saying is just out of control. That number should not be as high as 38%. It should be lower than 20%. So we need to fix that.
So if I'm understanding that, if there's a $100,000 salary, 38% of that is going towards benefits?
It's going to benefits. The
So
cost of the school district
the cost of the school
is going to
district.
benefits.
Oh.
That's not even the staff paying in their 20% of the contribution.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're no different than any other school.
No
right?
different
You're
than
not
any other
saying- You're not
school,
saying
no.
we're higher than
No.
other people in the state. It's
no,
just
the
these
state
are-
is very high.
Right,
in
it's
this
just the
area.
state is high,
Yeah.
right?
We don't
Right.
negotiate our health insurance.
Well, I know, I mean, cause it's out of our hands.
Definitely higher than most of the country, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're working on it for sure.
Do we have that, like what the average is for the country?
I
Or
have
New
it.
England?
I do.
That-
Not here, but yes.
I don't
do.
know if that would be beneficial or not, but, Because it's out of
The
our
future of,
hand?
Commission on the Future of Public Education would probably have
Right.
that data.
Good to know, I'll reach out.
No, we should make sure they have it.
So, this is just a reflection of the changes made to draft 1 to draft 2, and basically the change over last year's budget. So you can see the increase is about 3.53% or 1.7 million in this draft.
So just real quick, I saw that it went down from the previous draft?
No, it went up.
No, a little bit.
Yeah, it went up a few $100,000.
Okay. Sorry, I read it backwards.
It is interesting, you know, it's other school districts that are in the early budget phase as we are now. I have not heard of anybody that's got a 3% increase in their draft budgets right now. It's a lot higher. So I just think it's important that the community hear that our early drafts, even before we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, are very responsible. And the governor's calling for a 3% increase, and no more than that. So I think we're trying to be very responsible to that.
And I think, you know, this just outlines basically almost all the changes in draft 1 and draft 2 that are staff related. And I think I put the contracts for SB school-based clinicians in here also, because they're serving our students directly, even though they're a contracted service. All the red is actually reductions in staffing. And then you can see the vacant positions, just because I think the board's always kind of interested in that, and that was a point in time. Some of these positions might have changed, but,
So what is SBC?
school-based clinician. And so a lot of these savings or these reductions is what's, absorbing the benefit and salary increases that we started with in draft 1. But then I needed to make contract adjustments as well, and that put us back with a larger increase. And this is just central office. Again, no, that is an employee, the BCBA is an employee, sorry. So some more adjustments, and some central office reductions. So overall, $503,000 worth of staff and contract reductions are represented in the draft at the moment.
And those are of currently vacant positions or contracts, for the most part.
These are reductions only. That $500,000 is only the ones that have been eliminated, not the vacant ones.
Correct, but no current,
Staff.
yeah, except maybe one position. We have, these are our
I know what you're
reductions
saying now.
I'm trying to make, we're not talking about.
Eliminating people or firing people, we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about positions that aren't filled and not going to be filled?
Correct.
For instance, the bottom one in central office, that's the grant position that we reduced partially last year. There's no one in that position. We've been seeing how we operate, so we think we can handle that, so we've reduced it the other 8 FTE. But there's no one in that position right now. Yeah.
We're not eliminating somebody's job.
No.
There's a lot of that related to grants around around COVID and certain.
Yes, I mean, some things,
I mean,
we're backing off things that were in place during
Right.
COVID. We had extra grant funds.
You don't have the grants
Correct.
available.
There's
a variety.
There is just as much money to handle actually.
Really?
Is that
not the COVID money, but
No.
we will be reporting on how we spent the COVID money, even more in a more complex manner. Basically forever on some things. Capital projects, as long as the asset, so the investment we made in Franklin, we will be having to do a very sophisticated report on that forever, is what they're telling us, or the life of the
building.
Yeah, so ESSER funding was wonderful, but it came with a lot of administrative burden, and it's continuing.
Julie, that's the position the grant funding position within the office that we discussed last year that is just
Been absorbed by Laura and Lisa and others in central office.
so therefore the work may still be there.
Oh, it's there.
But we no longer are hiring to it. So that's the one that we discussed as a
Well,
board.
we aren't backing out, we're not doing grant applications and things of that nature.
No, that's not slowing down. It's the management of it is being managed by other, we
Once we
distributed
spend-
the work.
Once we spent the money, now we're
And
going.
I was just using it as an example to Julie's point, that some of these that we're we're reducing it in red. There's no person in that right now. Yeah.
And we'll be looking at other positions, but we really want to make sure that we have the positions in place that we can, you know, make the adjustments we need to make for the supports of students.
But these are the hard conversations because it's also, the work is still there.
The work is still
that
there.
you still need to get done, but now you can't potentially add the person to it. So like, you know, we're doing the tough calls of saying we can't grow in these certain areas, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to if we could. So.
These are all hard decisions.
They're jamming out.
And then, just also in this draft, I've reduced most of the 300s and 400s, which are contracted and purchase services. And I say 300 and 400 because you'll notice them rolled up on your budget draft, so it's just helpful to reference. But that's all of the student services that we provide, or that we contract for, I should say, and provide. It also includes the tuition that we pay for independent schools or specialized schools that some of our students go to. It also includes transportation. We are going out to bid again for hopefully a 3-year agreement for transportation, and that will need to start next year. So that process is going to be initiated soon. And I've also adjusted the 2 bond payments that we have. You can see we're in year 5 of 20 for Highgate, and for MVU we're in year 6 of 20. Every year we pay a little bit less interest. The principal payment stays the same.
Laura, did I just hear you say we're going to bid our transportation?
Yes.
We're going to be going out to bid very soon for next year and the next, hopefully, 3 years.
So the budget we're building, we're gonna see probably a significant increase in transportation costs?
I've included an increase in this one. I honestly would rather not say it on camera.
No, I just didn't realize we'd gone through 3 years.
It felt like yesterday we were.
Yeah. I thought it might be the 3rd year, but we're going
Well, I'm hoping, I mean, the price of fuel has gone down and.
I think staffing's gonna be the issue.
Staffing is the big piece.
They
They've had
cannot
to
find
make a
help.
lot of investments in salary and benefits, just as we all have. But again, that's work for us to go through, so we'll see what kind of leverage we have.
No, I didn't want to negotiate, I just wanted to clarify. Seems like we were debating that.
I know, it goes by very quickly. And then other things like utilities, I've tried to adjust those for the buildings up, just to point out, like, utilities are going up also, just like everything else. Rent, and then I just basically, again, reduce other lines as possible with known information. So this is the point in the budget process where we're not nickel and diming, maybe is the right thing to do, but I'm comparing, looking back 3 years and just seeing where I can find pieces of money or also lines that might have been underfunded that we now need to adjust back up.
A lot of fun.
So that's about all I have to say about the board draft, unless people
I do want to point out that next month, buckle up, it's going to be a very long December 3rd meeting. One of the things we will have is a presentation from Student Services on special ed, the numbers of students, the categories of disability that we have, and the costs and staffing ratios for our employees in special ed, as well as the numbers of transportation and tuition costs for students who we educate elsewhere. So we're trying to tie the data with the budget information. And then we will have FFA kids, and we will have Steve Messier talking about MVU behavior. So it'll be long, but just we couldn't do it this month, and we wanted to make sure that it wasn't too late in the budget season. It's really important that we look at those numbers in the context of the student need.
It'll change by then anyway.
It's dynamic.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up again is the informational meeting.
Yes.
I don't know if you're ready to pick a date, but it would be helpful for me if you have a date. So it cannot, if the 30 days, it cannot be any earlier than February 3rd. And if you'd like to keep it to a Tuesday, that would be the 4th or the 11th. You're welcome to have it whenever you want.
No,
I think we
I
have a
know
meeting
that
on
that's
one
what
of
you're
those days.
focused on, but don't we usually, haven't we in recent years been doing a pre-meeting before we approve the budget?
We were doing did we do another input
We were
meeting?
doing an input meeting
Okay, that's what it was called.
before
Yeah.
a board meeting.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the informational meeting now
Right,
is
yeah.
able to be a month ahead of time because we vote by Australian
So we're
ballot.
still gonna do the other one, I guess is my question.
I think we discussed maybe having that before a board meeting.
Budget day is the 4th, March 4th. Town hall.
Yep.
Town meeting is March 4th, yes.
I think we have.
So probably the 11th, I think
I was
last
gonna say,
time.
didn't we talk about the 11th?
We talked
last
about
time?
both, I threw out both
Right,
of them.
right, but I thought that we thought,
we
we were
did,
leaning towards the 11th, but I don't know how other
We
people
were,
feel.
we were waiting to have the rest of the board members present to kind of.
11th makes sense. You're getting closer, that, people probably would have the annual report in their hands by the 11th.
Probably.
They certainly
Certainly an online version.
No, they wouldn't have it right
Likely
before.
that we'll have that, we usually have that mailed out.
Definitely an online version, and now you'll just be able to print it out. That's how it's with the new software. So yes, it's gonna be out basically as soon as you tell me that you're approving a budget, can be pushed out.
So the 11th makes sense.
The other thing is with people voting absentee, I don't think that we should wait.
Right.
You know, just to wait for someone to have a book. I mean, we can present to, the community, and we can refer to what's online, and if the book isn't out yet, we can
Well,
say
we're
that
not-
it'll be out in a few days.
We don't print the book and mail it out. We'll be printing our own copies of the online book and providing it to the towns and all the places, so we won't have to wait for the printing, I guess, is my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason we wouldn't do it on the 4th? Like, I feel like the longer runway we have and the more opportunities to engage.
Swan Select Board's.
Oh, there's already one that evening?
No, meet
just
that
a
day.
regular meeting.
We meet on.
The February
You
3rd
meet that day?
is a
Don't we?
regular board
On the
meeting.
Yeah,
4th
we
and
have
18th.
a meeting the 4th, Tuesday the 4th.
That's what I thought was happening.
So if we met in the middle one, we could.
And it would just be a special meeting just for that in between. So, I think just making it its own thing on the 11th, 3 weeks before, gives us another opportunity to talk to everybody.
Are we going to have multiple? I know that was something that we had discussed.
Well,
Especially
the
with,
informational meeting is one meeting.
Yeah.
But marketing is a whole other conversation. But it's, we don't want to confuse the formal district informational
By
meeting.
law, and there's
By,
a lot of rules, that's why we have to make sure we identify. We
Gotcha.
can do other
Right.
meetings, but this is
the official one.
information.
Got it.
And really the one most people pay attention to.
Is anybody opposed to having same time as a board meeting, or we want to just keep it like its own meeting on the 11th? Because that's really the difference.
I'm fine with that on the 11th.
So the 11th at 7, we usually have it at 7 o'clock. It's usually about an hour. One by 10.
Yeah, if it's its own meeting, we can just advertise it as its own thing,
Absolutely.
separate from the board
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep. It's warned in our warning of the budget. That's why, that's why it's
And that's
important
at
to get that
MVU,
scheduled.
at MVU Library.
Unless you tell us differently before it gets warned.
I just wonder if we wanted to sit in our new seats in the auditorium with that, we probably don't get that big a turnout, right?
We usually get
Be
about
nice,
10 people.
I don't know, those seats,
Those are
apparently
comfortable
they're pretty
seats.
comfy.
They're good seats, we like the seats. But yes, 7 o'clock MVU, February 11th. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
And Don just said he wants it in the auditorium. Big screen, we'll make a panel,
It just,
5
it
people.
looks really lonely when, the board's up on the stage. And there's the three people in the front row.
Actually, 3 people are way in the back.
Come on down!
Project,
You have them do like CGI so they make the stands for
There have been years over the last 20 years that you didn't have to worry.
Right.
There were plenty of people there, and they were ready for discussion.
We'll just say we're offering free food.
I'm just gonna say pizza usually brings people in.
You know, that's not bad. You say informational meeting and pizza night. You never know.
Childcare.
We did pretty good with donuts.
I was gonna say, the donuts were pretty good.
We could try to offer food.
Or we invite the.
It's because they were maple.
That's
That's
right.
because they were maple.
I'd rather have a maple donut.
Okay, so February 11th, MVU 7 p.m.
Good.
Right, next agenda item is the security cameras for action, adopting the policy.
Yep, it's been warned for 20 plus days. And we went over what some of the adjustments were. I think it's a better fit to reflect the bus cameras, et cetera. So we'd just be looking for a motion to adopt this new policy.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Nick's the first, Megan's the second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Yeah. And so, last time, we went around in circles, talking about how to make a finding for executive session, which was more humorous than it needed to be. But we have several topics: negotiations update, discussion of a teacher resignation, employee investigations update, and admin reviews, all which I would look for a board member to make a motion that they are appropriate reasons for us to enter executive session. And we vote on that. And then, when we're ready, we vote to go into executive session at that time.
I so move that I think there's a reasoning to have a finding on all those.
I'll second.
I will. Damn.
Okay.
Stephanie got
You gotta say it though. You gotta second.
Kira's
Make it.
first, Stephanie's the second.
She said so moved.
So we're looking at Article 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yep.
Yes.
So we're gonna do 13 first,
Yes.
which would be the.
So you're not,
You gotta vote
now you're
first.
just voting that it's appropriate. So
Okay.
you,
We're gonna go into committee updates.
right. And then when you are finished with all of your regular open session agenda items, you'll vote to go into executive session, just like you usually do.
Okay. All right, committee updates.
We don't vote on it.
No,
You do vote,
No.
though.
we have to
We have
vote
to
that it's
vote.
You have
appropriate to
a
go
motion
ahead.
and a second.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking it difficult.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Oh,
We'll get it right next time.
We're making progress.
We were close. We were right there.
That was a 15-minute conversation.
And then they like didn't even need executive session for it. That was the best part.
Yeah, last time, that's right. Then we said,
All right, next
It's
agenda
appropriate,
items,
but we're
committee updates. Peter.
what's that?
Committee updates.
Committee updates.
I'm
We-
singling you out.
We had a really good facilities meeting last week. So I think people will be pleasantly surprised at the projects that we're looking to get done within the budget that Laura showed up there. Not everything that needs to be done, but a great majority of it. So there'll be more to come in the future on the exact projects, but it was a really good, informative meeting. So that's about it for the update.
Joanne.
We meet tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Next time.
Sorry. Next time.
Was that intentional?
Well, yeah.
Well, it's because ours are on every third week, and then November and December, it's first and third weeks. So normally we would be in between, but the holidays are messing things up a
We've
little
got one
bit.
up this week.
Yep.
I don't have anything for finance that we did discuss last meeting. Our next meeting is December
Second, I think.
Second, I think. Yeah. so everyone will just be full on turkey, so.
Thank you. Future agenda items, special education presentation, FFA presentation, MVU student management presentation. Future board meeting will be December 3rd in MVU library at 6 p.m. And now I'd like to, have to make a motion for us to go into executive session, inviting in Bonnie,
And Laura
And
and
Laura.
Julie, and then we'll excuse
Laura
folks.
after the,
Yeah.
okay, after the negotiations. Yep.
Absolutely.